Hello and welcome to my Woolly PhD. My name's Liz Scarf and this is a weekly vlog about what I'm thinking and making in my anthropology PhD about wool. This week I've been thinking about asking questions. So something that anthropology and psychotherapy seem to have in common, maybe other disciplines too, but is the idea that what people think and say about themselves, their lives, their beliefs, it's usually quite different from their actual behaviours. And so this is why in anthropology, the main method we use to learn about people's lives is to actually hang out people in their lives and observe. So being with people in their doing, not relying on interviewing people and asking them to explain themselves and their lives. Because we will all tell the stories we want to believe about ourselves and that we want others to believe about ourselves. And these can be like a big gap between what we actually do. And this is across many, if not all cultures, and definitely across professions. Definitely it's in the research around therapists, what we think we're doing and what we actually do, or what we say we're doing, can be really different. So it's not a criticism of anyone, it's just really common that there's a gap between action and behaviour and story about ourselves and our lives. So Iceland is no exception as a culture. So when you read about Iceland in any kind of lay literature and some academic literature, there are lots of cultural stories told that Icelanders want the world to believe, some Icelanders, and that the world wants to believe about Iceland as well, right? But that on the ground, the day-to-day life, it's actually, it doesn't seem like that's the case. So, I mean, one example I've seen is gender equality. I was really surprised, right? Because even though I know better than to believe what statistics say about reality, about people's lived reality, I did go to Iceland thinking it was like that the lives of women and attitudes towards women were going to be significantly better than in Australia, at least, because of the popular narratives and statistics that suggest Iceland is quite gender progressive. And on the ground, it didn't seem like that. It hasn't seemed like that in terms of gendered interactions, traditional gender roles. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, it's impossible to talk about a whole culture, of course. It might be that I'm hanging out in a more traditional sector as well, but the more I read across literature, the more I just think the story is obviously more complex, but this gender equality piece is a story that everyone wants to believe more than it is, well, more, I don't know. Anyway, if you're expecting a gender utopia, it's not to say it's not better. In the statistics don't matter; they really matter. Like the pay gap is a lot better than Australia. Women in leadership roles is a lot better. So there's a lot of ways in which it is better. This video is not actually about gender. It is about asking questions. So if I got back on track. One of the things I noticed and that others have reported on is that Icelanders don't tend to ask you much about yourself or your life. And I've been pretty stumped as to why this is. Even when I try to think about it as a psychotherapist, like why wouldn't people ask questions? I've got a bunch of different answers, but none of them feel like they fit. And so I've asked some Icelanders about it and I didn't really have an explanation either that totally made sense to me. And most of them also would just say, I don't really know. They'd say they see it now that I've pointed out, but they don't really know why that's the case. And this is one person who I follow who writes about Iceland. It's lay literature, but they, a year or so ago, they started learning about trauma, I think, in their own personal therapy. And as many people do when they first learn about trauma, then they start thinking everything's trauma and they see everything and explain everything through a trauma lens. So this person was kind of writing that everything about Icelandic culture was due to intergenerational trauma, probably forgetting that we could say every culture has got a history and an ongoing practice of intergenerational trauma happening, but of course they don't all respond the same. So this writer was explaining this kind of not asking questions as an impact of trauma, which I also did not like. As a trauma therapist, I was like, no, that doesn't add up either to me. Because, yeah, many cultures have got intergenerational trauma histories, if we want to use that lens, and still ongoing, and ask each other a lot of questions. So I was chatting with an academic the other day about this question asking thing. And as I was describing it, they kind of said it's actually quite common in highly communal cultures, very common in Indigenous cultures, that highly communal. They don't tend to get to know each other through asking questions about each other. They just do life together, and the more you do life together, the closer you get, and the closer you get, the more you're known, and then you don't need to ask people questions because you know them, because you've been living with them for however long. And so in these contexts, you know, being a real question asker can be a bit intrusive or seem a bit nosy, like it's a bit weird. Like you're kind of trying to jump the gun on the relationship kind of building process. And that this kind of question asking, it's more common when there's a lot of sort of separation in a cultural context. So more hierarchies, more boundaries, borders, and perhaps where people aren't living as closely together. They don't do life together a lot. They're a bit more separated. So this explanation actually made more sense to me in the Icelandic context, because my understanding, at least, is historically it's very community oriented, collective oriented. It's had a strong narrative about being non-hierarchical or not having class. This has started to change since the economic crisis, because there is huge economic disparity in Iceland for sure. But yeah, it's of course always way more complex than what I've mentioned. And every time I kind of say something about Iceland, I just think, you can't really talk about a whole culture or a whole community like that. There's just so much, I think, diversity across the country. But again, anthropology doesn't seek to describe or have a comprehensive capturing of diversity. So yes, maybe everything I've said I can just say, in the little part of Iceland that I've been hanging out in, it didn't look like this, it looked like that. And the question asking, though, I think I've seen this as a common observation about Icelandic culture. It has particularly, though, made me think about how to conduct field work. Like about in what context do I ask questions, who do I ask questions to? And so I've thought about this before in terms of the relational ethics, right, and not researching in an extractive way. But this cultural style angle to question asking has really got me sort of thinking about it in a different way and wondering if my next fieldwork trip, if I'm going to do something different as a result of this. I don't really have a conclusion to that yet, but that's what I've been thinking about, learning about, sitting with this week. What have I been making? Well, I got my making mojo back a little bit. I have been knitting more than I was before. If you've been watching a while, you know I've been a bit tuckered out this past couple of months and doing less making, certainly less knitting when it's warmer as well. I've been doing more sewing. So this is how the shawl is coming along. It's, again, I think I said this last week, it's really hard to see what they look like. It's got this gorgeous little lace pattern. You need a better background to see that. Anyway, it's nice, and it's the first and last mohair only thing I'll ever make, I think. But if you do see me cast something on, do remind me how much I promised I was never going to do it again. Anyway, I'm doing a couple of rows on this every night, and that should get it finished in time before I leave. Of course, every row gets bigger, but that's on track. And then I've been working, it's a shawl by Sweater Babe. And I'm also doing a couple of rows every day on this cardigan, the Asenia cardigan by Anna Fjosvard. I think I'm pretty much past the agonizing, like, what does this pattern actually mean? I think I'm on track. It's looking pretty good. It's got these really called Ruisted, I'm not sure, really cool things on it. There's some nifty little cables, a little lace work. It's really, really lovely pattern. I really like it. I really like the wool. I am not sure if it's too small or not. Like, just really sure that this neck might actually be too small. I mean, it's a V neck, I think. Anyway, we'll see. I thought, well, if it's too small, I'll just keep knitting another block of the raglan increases. Because you know what, I think I've got 5 more rows to go until I finish them. That's not going to be big enough. I'm hoping that will work. I can kind of just adapt the maths as I go through the... After that, it's just that neck thing. What do you think? Have you done something like that before and it worked out okay? Where you just kind of kept going with your raglan yoke bit and fudge the numbers after that? We'll see. I'll be disappointed if it doesn't work because it's actually a lot of work to knit this one because of the way the pattern's structured. Oh, anyway, there's so many knitting sagas. Done a bit more on the socks, which I don't have here to hand. But a very exciting thing I have been making is I did a test swatch for like all that fleece I've been showing. I finally got it all together, and so what I was doing was combining this, where did it all go? This grey Corriedale with this brown Corriedale. So I mixed them together on the drum carder, and then I was putting in little flecks of this lovely brown Corriedale, which is actually this. That was this one. Anyway, so I just did one bat and then I spun it up. It was not the best spin, but I wasn't trying very hard because I was like, oh, it's just a swatch. Anyway, so I have knitted this little test swatch. It's lovely. I'm trying to get a warm grey because I love grey, but it doesn't look any good on me because it's a very cool colour. But if I can get enough brown in it, it turns warm enough, I think. Anyway, there's definitely the dark brown flecks are too big. So now I know I will make them smaller. But as I was doing this, because I've got nearly 2 kilos of fleece all up, probably 1,800 of these two combined. And I had just been thinking, I'll just do it all, it's all going to be one spin. And then I thought, why not separate these out into the darker and lighter, because there's just a little colour variation. So I put the darker grey and darker brown together, and then the lighter grey and then the lighter brown together. And then the dark flecks will go in here. And then I'm going to make a colourwork sweater with it. So I'll make this the main colour, this will be the contrast colour. So it'll be kind of subtle, but I like that. Anyway, that's what I'm going to do. I'm very excited about it. And I have no time to do it now because today in 2 weeks, I'll be buckled into my plane seat, my first plane seat when I'm, this time in 2 weeks, heading back to Iceland. So I have no time to do this. So I did spend Sunday separating out the fleece colours, doing the maths on how to do the split, bagging them all up into their separate components, labelling everything, and then just put it all in a giant Ziploc bag for when I get back. So that's exciting. This is a multi-year project, I reckon. What did I do? I washed them. I think I washed that fleece 1 or 2 years ago. It's not just me, I know everyone's like this. Well, lots of people are. So that's what I have been making. Now, before I leave, I wanted to add just an extra little comment, just for anyone, particularly for regular watchers who may have seen some comments on some of the videos that are less than less than okay behaviour actually. You know, so I'm getting the classic boring generalised criticism from anonymous men, or I assume they're men because the anonymous persona they use is male, and this kind of commentary towards women on social media is mostly from white cisgendered hetero men. Could also be from bots actually, so I don't know. So I've seen some comments like this coming through, and I've also seen that other people who might watch the channel more regularly starting to engage or challenge these people or comments, whatever they are. So, I mean, one could see this as a milestone of success for the channel, but, you know, that it's started to attract misogynists and irritate them, but mostly I just see it as a waste of my time, our time. So I just wanted to let you know my strategy. So I delete, I block, I don't engage, I don't give them my attention. This is probably all the attention they're going to get, right? It's just a waste of my time because these are not people who are open to productive dialogue or learning. They're just interested in harassing women online. So if you're like a viewer and commentator and that's not your deal, you're also free to ignore them on this channel if you've got better things to do with your time. If it's not really calling you to jump in, you can go into battle if you like, but just know that I will delete their comment and any replies will be deleted as well. So it might be more of a waste of your time than usual because it just won't even stay there. Yeah, so just to let you know, that's my strategy. If you see some of those things happen and then they disappear, that's why, because if I see them come up, I just get rid of them. I don't want to give them any airtime. Yeah, what it does do though is it makes me extra grateful for the many great commentators and viewers, or commenters, not commentators, commenters. Thank you, you all rock and I love learning together. Yeah, keen to hear your thoughts about questions. I mean, we have kind of jumped to gender a few times in a few different contexts here. Is this a can of worms we're opening? Maybe let's do it really intentionally on another one. But yeah, I'm interested in, I don't know if you've had cultural experiences where the kind of way in which people dialogue and socialise, particularly around what looks like curiosity or question asking. If there's places you've been to, experiences you've had where you've just thought, oh, that's interesting. It's not how we do it at home, or, yeah, where was it? Why do you think it was done like that? Keen to hear. Okay, thanks for watching and I will see you next week. Well, I'll do another video next week. Will I do one? I might do another one before I leave. There might be two before I leave. I'm going to see how I go. I'm not going to just be mean to myself about it because trying to get away for 4 months sometimes is a bit hectic. But yeah, not long now and we will have videos from in the field. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.